So
We're live.
we are live. It is the Moviemen of We Live Entertainment. It's Movieman Menzel here with me, Mark the Movie Man, and tonight we're just shooting from the hip, and we're going to talk about a couple movies that came out this weekend. One of them is Sausage Party, and the other is Pete's Dragon. Two films on the completely different ends of the spectrum in every way, shape, or form. How you doing tonight, Scott?
Good, and I'm happy that we can finally get together and do a video, as I was telling you earlier, just because of the fact that I wanted to celebrate your anniversary here on YouTube. So a little late, but better late than never.
Well, and then we also, we just hit our 1,000th subscribers, so it's like a double celebration. And then
100th episode.
That was the spoiler room. Yes, 100th episode of the spoiler room. So we had all of that. So tonight, I think first we'll start off with Sausage Party.
Okay.
Sausage Party, as those three out there in the world who may not know, is the Seth Rogen animated adult film about a sausage who strives, according to IMDb, a sausage that strives to discover the truth about his existence. You see the food world actually, think Toy Story, but with food, where you don't see them, but they actually do live the food, and they have this whole belief of the great beyond, of going to the great beyond, being chosen by the gods, who are humans, and to go live off and be puppy dogs and rainbows. But we all know the truth of what happens with our food. And so when Seth Rogen's sausage and his girlfriend Buns, sorry, his girlfriend, I forgot her name even. I apologize.
It's okay. It's a bun. It's not important.
It's a bun. And when they get out of their packages, they run loose in the store with a bagel and a piece and a what, flatbread? Was it lobster?
Lobster.
Yeah. And these four end up learning the truth about what happens. Meanwhile, our sausage friend has a buddy who actually makes it with the gods to the home, and he sees the truth, and he tries to make his way back to the grocery store as Seth Rogen's sausage character. I even forgot his name.
Frank. It was so original.
That's right. It was Frank. I apologize. Frank learns the truth about what really goes on and tries to relay that truth to everyone. It's a comedy, and there's a lot of people out there that are loving it, and more power to you. Scott, how did you feel about Sausage Party?
Well, sausage. Honestly, I'm going to be 100% honest about this, and people can take it or leave or try to say that I'm not trying to be honest about this, but I really am. I honestly was looking forward to this at South by Southwest, because when I read about the plot description and the idea that it was going to be like almost like a parody of a Pixar movie, I said to myself, it could be decent. And people always think like, I don't really like Seth Rogen. And truth be told, I do have quite a bit of an issue with him, because he basically plays himself in every single film. To me, it's not acting. It's just him being him. But there's exceptions to every rule. Like when he was in Steve Jobs, he was great. Even in movies where it was a little darker tone, like Observe and Report, I think the name of the movie was, he was actually pretty good, because it was like a darker tone. And that movie was like raunchy and everything too, but the tone was completely different. With this movie, I was really hoping for something different. Like I was hoping that there would be some cleverness to it, that it wouldn't be all about what this movie ultimately becomes about. And really, the movie is just, to me, it's appealing to the lowest common denominator. It's a movie that takes one joke of the food is coming to life and they're figuring out what's going to happen to them. And it's like, let's throw in as much sex sex talk we can, how much sex humor we can, and really it even becomes worse as it goes along because every single character is a racist stereotype, all of which Seth Rogen admitted that he wanted it to be as racist as possible at the South by Southwest Q&A. So it was not offensive to me. I think it was more offensive to my mind and as an insult to my intelligence.
That's a good way to put it. See, with Sausage Party, it's funny because Seth Rogen is hit or miss with me as well. Got to take a hit of my drink here.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like I should have a couple Long Island iced teas when we're doing this one.
He's hit or miss. Sometimes he's funny and entertaining, and there's some films that aren't. I liked the premise. I liked the idea with the talking food and how they kind of, had faith in one way, and then we see how it goes the other way. And that scene's in the trailer, and that's what kind of had me chuckle a little bit. I'm like, okay, I could get behind this. But it's a movie that takes an original premise and then it uses every cliche, already used, predictable joke in the book, stuff we've seen before. So it's a great idea, great story, but the execution felt a little lazy in that like you said, lowest common denominator. They went for the easy, expected joke. You've got a bagel and you've got the flatbread who's Palestinian, and of course you immediately got those jokes. You've got the Mexicans in there, the Latinos in there, and they're all stereotypes,
And people, Mark, and people, which is interesting to me, and I'm still baffled by this rating. And I'm like you said, if people like this movie, more power to them. I mean, if they saw something that you and I did not see with this movie, I'm glad. But based on my viewing of this film, and then also being there to actually hear Seth Rogen talk about the movie for 20 minutes, I have a much different opinion. But going what you were saying is like people are like trying to brush this off as, instead of it being racist or flat out like just insulting, they're trying to say, well, it's satire, it's clever. And there's nothing clever whatsoever about a Jewish bagel or, a Palestinian, falafel, whatever it is. Like there's nothing, or a Mexican taco. Like, come on. Like it's just, it's satire, but it's like they pick the actors. I mean, like Craig Robinson plays a character named Grits. I mean, it's so racist and so blatantly racist. But what makes it even worse is that if it is satire and people are saying it's satire, it's not clever. What's clever about that?
Yeah, it's going for the easy joke, and I didn't laugh. I think I laughed maybe twice. I think maybe twice on it. What actually interested me more wasn't the story with Seth Rogen's Frank and his and Brenda, who was the buns that he was destined to be with because their packages were together. It was actually the story of his little the short sausage who got out into the world and tried to make his way back to the grocery store.
Michael Cera's character.
Right. And he runs across the guy with the bath salts.
Yeah.
That story, I wanted to see more of that, in all honesty. That I liked. I dug him being out in the real world and running across the empty cartons that were dead,
Yeah.
And the fact that bath salts, it's a bit of a spoiler here, folks, but the bath salts help people see the true reality of food.
Right.
That whole part I loved. And then they'd go back to the grocery store and racial joke, which is kind of funny with considering how offended people seem to be getting with anything today.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to be batting an eye with this film.
Right. And I think it goes to show you that I feel like as an animated film, people are just like so desensitized by it because it's like, oh, and I really think a lot of it kind of comes down to the fact that, The Simpsons started it, where they didn't push the envelope that far, but then you have the South Park guys who came in and really just everything that they do, they just push the envelope. But to me, and I know you're not a big fan of South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut either.
No, but, actually, I am.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought this movie wanted to be so much like that movie in the sense of let's try to offend as many people as possible. Let's try to put any insults where we'll do sexual gags, but there's no incredible message at the end of this movie. People are trying to say that there's it tackles war and the religious stereotypes. And I really want to ask these people, what movie are they watching? What did I miss? I mean, you and I, we see how many movies between our independent movies and our mainstream movies. We see upwards of 200, 250 movies a year. Okay? And we've been doing this for so long. And you didn't see that. I didn't see that. So it's I think it's people picking. They're there's got to be something to this. There's got to be something to this. And they're just trying to say that. And I really believe that even at that screening, people were asking that, and Rogen just completely debunked it. He was like, no, I just wanted to make a movie about food where they basically fucked at the end. That's it. Spoiler alert. But, if you read anything about this movie, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, and after I heard that surprised me, because I'm sitting here going, if there was any film that bashed some kind of message over your head more than this, it would have been Fern Gully with its "Don't Pollute the World." Right. In this one, it was so obvious of the whole attacking faith thing. Yeah. You get hit over the head with it. But again, I think you hit something there, that the fact that it's an animated film, people are giving it more of a pass. If you do this exact film, but you have humans, I think you're going to have many, many, many groups writing the writers and boycotting the film. And, oh my God, the stereotypes, like they do with every other film.
Right, exactly.
Out there, and so it surprises me how much of a pass this film seems to be getting anyway, unless they're really good at covering up any controversy. But
no, I don't think they are. I mean, what's actually really interesting about this movie? I think it was either 6. This movie took 6 to 8 years to make, and it's this is the best that they came up with in that period of time.
And it's if you've seen enough movies and seen enough comedies, you've seen these jokes before, and you've seen them done better than here. Here, they kind of using a sledgehammer for their humor. Okay, I get you're going to be vulgar, kind of like South Park. South Park pushed that envelope. Okay, right. I got that, but I'm we've done the racial stereotypes many times before.
Right.
We've done pretty much all these beats. The attack on religion, everything has been done and executed better. And what's even more funny is, as you watch this film along, it seems like they run out of more and more ideas as they go along in this film, to where whatever their original tent at the beginning of the film is now completely different.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel consistent either with what they wanted to do. And even at the end, I can see why Seth Rogen was saying that, because there's really no message by the end. It might have started out at the beginning, but that same message or a new message isn't at the end, outside of a complete, food orgy.
Yeah.
Which even that was predictable. And it's okay, guys, all right, I now there was younger guys behind me laughing, and like I said, more power to them. But for me, I would rather watch Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And if you want to look at a really good film that's actually smart in its racial jokes, Blazing Saddles, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you really pointed out something with using Blazing Saddles, because there's a movie where they take racial stereotypes and they use them in a smart way and debunk them. And this movie just, I agree with you. I was never really on board with the movie because, like, I just felt like every time, even if a character was interesting, like the Michael Cera character, it spent too much time wanting to go back to, like, oh, we have to make it into this sexual adventure, or, like, let's make the, I don't know, the characters fight and say crude and rude things to one another. So every ounce of the story where you would see like a little inkling of hope, it just kind of like, nah, we don't want to go deal with that. And by the time it comes to the end, is it just me, or is it that the film just actually feels more and more lazier as it goes on? Like you just keep going, and you're just like, okay, where's this going to go? And it's like, oh, of course it's going to go to that.
It did what some indie films I have seen in the past do, in that they would serve better as a short film.
Yes.
And this felt like this would have been probably a better idea as a short film that they made into a full feature film. I think as a short film, you might even enjoy it more because you get a little less, of everything in it. So it stays at least a little bit fresher. They could definitely have gotten to this within a half-hour short film.
Right.
Because that end part is kind of where you get a little bit of hope, because at least it takes a difference. It's the point, where they realize they can kind of strike back, and it's like that whole part there. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of digging this part.
Yeah.
So there's bits and pieces that I found enjoyable and entertaining, but it felt like it was just being stretched out. It was like, insert vulgarity here. And I think the big thing, and people will say, well, how can you love Bigger, Longer, and Uncut versus this? I'm like, if you look at South Park, the vulgarity, even in that film, it was plot driven.
Right. The whole thing with Uncle Fuck and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It literally was like made to go up against the MPAA. Like there was like a whole point of the movie was, the ultimate point of that movie was that it was an attack on the MPAA. It was to show how stupid and pointless war is. Like, there was some really, really clever, clear, precise plot points in that movie. Even the whole thing what they did with the get behind the donkeys and kind of like the people of ethnic backgrounds being up front first.
Yeah.
That was really, really clever. It's offensive, yes, but that's how you make a movie that actually has underneath the vulgarity a good solid point, and multiple points at that. Mm-hmm. This one was like, okay, we're gonna pretend we're saying something about war and faith and religion, but we're not gonna flesh it out. We'll just have like the characters be stereotypes, and we'll have them have arguments, and then they'll all come together in a food orgy, and that'll solve everything. Like, it's like, okay.
There are bits. It's like they came up with some really great scenes, and then they had to figure out how to tie them together.
I agree. Like when they you're right. That scene where they were like all kind of figuring out what they're going to do to their plan of attack. Mm-hmm. It was like, wow. It was like, this might go somewhere now. And then you're like, 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, it's not. No.
or just like the scene where they all fell out of their package and they kind of reenacted the Saving Private Ryan thing with the food. That part I like. That was one of the parts I chuckled at. I'm like, okay, that's pretty creative, and that's in the trailer. But it was like getting to a couple of those scenes just was tough for me.
It's like I don't know if you saw Ted 2, but like Ted 2 had moments like that too. Like they would do like jokes where it would reference other movies. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, again, I understand that people like are playing homage and like parroting things, and it should work. And you're right. That scene in this movie worked, but to me, it's just like, all right, well, it's not original. Other movies have done it. Just because you have an animated movie about food that's doing this doesn't mean it hasn't been done in other movies before. And I know I'm being like really hard on this movie, but it's just that I feel like audiences should expect more. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with an R-rated movie or anything like that. And I'm fine. Like, I watch a lot of R-rated movies and movies that deal very heavily with sex and themes of that nature, but you have to think like I want to watch it as like a 33-year-old man and be able to appreciate it. I don't want to feel like I have to be 13 in order to get to really laugh at the jokes and then think to myself, well, that was kind of clever, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, so I think we'll wrap up here with Sausage Party. As you can tell, folks, didn't sit well with either one of us. I didn't feel I got my money's worth. More power to everybody out there who can find a lot of the humor in this film. But for me, I went in with an open mind going, okay, let's see, and I came out going, well, it had a couple good scenes, but nothing to save it for me. There's vulgarity, and I'm not against vulgarity. Trust me, if you've watched any of the films I've reviewed, I have nothing against.
He watches He watches Hooker Zombies from Mars. So
that's right. But here, I just think it could have been handled better and probably gotten a better animated film. They obviously found a specific demographic, though, because there's lots of people raving about the film. And I hope there are more mature animated films out that come out. And while this one I think could have been done better, I hope it is successful enough for them to take chances, because I think we do need some more films like this out there that are for adults. Animation doesn't have to be just for kids, especially with the comic book films now taking off.
So do you think, Mark, do you think when you said that, do you feel like it should be an open door for more R-rated movies, for R-rated animated movies by different directors, or do you think like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg should do more?
No, I think different directors. If you really want some good, mature, it's not comedy, but R-rated animated films, look for the the DVD now of Spawn, the animated series from Showtime. That is how you do R-rated animated film. That was a series, but in that style. I would love to see an animated film. And Killing Joke came close, in all honesty. It came close to that. Seeing Killing Joke and seeing Sausage Party, I'd like to see other directors take a chance with some possibly R-rated material, because I think there's some potential there to have a lot of fun, and make some interesting films that, by now we have so much CG in our live action films. It's the next, they're not that far from making a full animated film. So
did you see, just to kind of put this in perspective, did you see Neighbors too?
I did not.
Okay.
But I didn't see Neighbors 1 because, again, Seth Rogen, I'm kind of those films I kind of choose. I got some other things to watch before those,
Well, so. This is what I will say. I mean, if you want me to be completely honest, I would say Neighbors compared to this movie, Neighbors 2 at least. I feel like Neighbors 2 was a vast improvement over the first one. But really, for a Seth Rogen movie, that movie was pretty good. I'm not saying I loved it, but there were some jokes in there that really made me laugh out loud, and which is very rare for a comedy to do nowadays. And just to kind of put it in perspective, I think that Sausage Party did have a good idea. And I feel like that good idea just kind of went to waste because of what the director and the writer decided to do with the material, as opposed to what they could have done with the material. And that's all I want to say about that.
Yep. I think we've ranted a bit enough on that. Why don't we move over to the other big film that came out this weekend that, again, is completely on the opposite side of the spectrum from Sausage Party, which is Pete's Dragon. Did you want to tell?
We're doing like a PG and an R rating.
Our movie together, yeah. Yeah. Scott, did you want to tell folks what Pete's Dragon is about?
So Pete's Dragon is about a little boy named Pete who, at a very young age, loses his parents and spends a couple years in the wilderness where he befriends a dragon. And after that 6-year mark, he starts investigating because he's curious as to what's going on in the world. And he encounters a park ranger played by Bryce Dallas Howard. and some stuff kind of goes down in the forest, and then Pete gets discovered, and this family kind of wants to help raise him and take him out of the wilderness, but he still really wants to get back to his dragon, Elliot.
That's a good summary. It is another one of those live action versions of the animated films that Disney's been doing, and they've had a good track record in my personal opinion with these. I've not been disappointed by any of these so far, and this one is the same. I really enjoyed this movie.
It's okay, Mark. You can say you loved it, because I'm going to say I loved it.
I did. I loved this movie. And the thing is, I will totally admit, yes, it's family film. It's got a bit of cheese, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's handled well. And this film is just, it's warm. It's exciting. It's funny. It gets you in the feels. It's everything that you want from a family film, because family films are meant to be a bit cheesy in that and touching. And I just thought it was really well executed, because most modern family films seem to talk down to either the kids, bring it down to where, they treat the kids like they're dumb, or just try to be a Pixar replica, and they fail usually. And in this one, it was a family film, but I never felt like it was trying to be too saccharine or, too dumbed down for the audience. It goes to a few dark places, not staying there too long. This is a bit of an old school family film, in my opinion, and I loved it. I dug it. What about you?
You point on you touch base on so many different things there. I mean, the movie opens up with such a bold opening sequence. It really it kind of jumps into it, and it's really dark. And what's interesting about that, I'll share some of this information that I learned. That was actually the first take they ever did. That scene was the first take.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get the kid to replicate his emotion like he did. But that the first scene in this movie just kind of opens it gets you emotional right away. It sets the dark tone, and it's great. It's ballsy. It takes a little bit of a risk, which is something that I have to give Disney a lot of credit for, especially with Zootopia and now this. There's some risk taking involved. To move into more of the storyline, I mean, this is just such a feel-good, make me feel like a kid again. I love storytelling, great movie. I mean, you could not have picked a better actor than Robert Redford to narrate the film and also be the grandfather figure and tell this story of the dragon. And the stuff that kind of goes on as the movie unfolds, with the storytelling aspect of it, is just, it's emotional. I mean, the movie has the feels in all the right places, but along with that, it has this very beautiful, intimate feel to it that makes it feel like you're not watching a Disney film, but rather a small, independent movie. And I love that about it.
Well, and it's a good, you would feel like the way, because the director really has done mostly indie stuff before this. I mean, here's another example of studios taking, I think, a chance on an indie guy, and he handles this material so well. I mean, and I think, what I think it is? I think it's the fact that we have Elliot, the dragon, and yes, he's CGI in that. But this film never once feels like it's going, oh, look, we got the CGI dragon. Oh, look. Never once does it feel like that. They just present this character, but they don't do it in they don't really do it in a flashy way. I mean, it's great the way they introduce him. It just didn't feel like we were showing off our special effects. It was story first, which I think a number of these films that try to be this lose that, and they try to be effects first and then story.
Well, one of the things that was interesting, again, from the press day that I learned from the director David Lowery, was that they originally wrote this film to be like this epic summer blockbuster where a lot of scenes happen, like especially towards the end, where like big explosions, all this good stuff. And apparently, the studio executives and also the producers said the scenes where there was intimate moments between the dragon and Pete, we want more of it. Elliot and Pete, we want more of that interaction. So I was completely blown away when I heard that. Like, it's like, really? But to me, that's what made the movie work so much, or to work so well, I should say, is that every one of the two interactions, whenever two characters kind of come on screen, whether it's Ellie and Pete, or whether it's Bryce Dallas Howard and Pete, or Natalie and Pete, like all those moments are just really beautiful and well done, that it just feels very much like a character study and like a look at all these different characters and the family life and all that stuff.
Well, I think it's because it's the way it's shot, because not to get too technical or or anything, but if you look at the way it's shot, we do get some beautiful beauty shots, but your camera never really goes hugely wide at all, especially when there's character interaction. We mostly get medium shots of stuff. I mean, even when they come upon Pete's lair, you don't get a huge epic shot. It keeps things intimate and close. You never really leave Pete's side too much in this film. And who the Oaks Figley, who played Pete, I thought he was fantastic in this, especially for the role that he had. Everybody, even the kids, I think, good actors in here, and you got the veteran older actors in here. Everybody, I think the performances help as well. You can tell they're into this film and they get it. They get that this isn't a big flashy film, even though we have a main character who's CGI.
Yeah, and I think the kid actors in this movie, in a lot of ways, actually outshine the bigger actors. I mean, you do have Bryce Dallas Howard, you have Wes Bentley, you have Carl Urban, and of course Robert Redford. I really just think that the kids really hold their own. And it was interesting, and I don't know if you still haven't seen this, but Pete and Oaks Figley, he really reminded me of Jacob Tremblay in Room. It was very similar in a lot of ways, and I don't want to steal this quote, but my friend Jason said that a lot of this movie reminded him of Room meets Where the Wild Things Are, where it was like a nice combination of like that wonderful family storytelling, but that whole thing of like being out on your own and seeing the world for the first time. And it really was like that. And it was just beautifully done.
It was. And the other kid actor in here, played by Una Lawrence, Natalie, I thought she was fantastic. I was like, wow.
You know, it's the girl from Southpaw, right?
No, is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she blew me away in this as well. The chemistry between her and Oaks was great. I mean, kid actors sometimes are a little bit, cardboard or whatnot, but in this one, they were. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful film. Again, there is some cheese, there is some feels moments, because you're going to get that in a family film. That's what you want in a family film. But
did you feel that was with Carl Urban's character?
Yeah, I think Carl Urban's character, I think, felt just they needed someone to be a bad guy in here. And Carl Urban, I love Carl Urban. I mean, he was the only good thing in the movie The Priest. But in this one, the way they had his character, he was a bit of the basic cookie cutter Disney villain, though this is pretty much a beat for beat remake of the animated film. So, but his character, yeah, I would say out of all of them.
Wait! You actually think this is a beat for beat remake of the animated film?
Well, it felt like it.
Of the original Pete's Dragon?
Yeah, of the animated film.
Every single.
No, not everything. No.
No. Is there more than one? Hold on, because I remember seeing that, and almost every other person said that it was nothing like it.
It felt to me a lot like, at least with the relationship with Pete and the
Oh, the
dragon
dragon.
and the dragon. Yeah,
Yeah, but I guess maybe it's just because that was so cheesy.
it could be.
Like like, and
Yeah,
it's like a musical and all that stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched it too, so I could be completely off on it.
I can be completely.
So,
You'll go back and watch it now. I'm like, shit. What did I
shit.
say?
No. So I could be completely off, but it felt, at least the relationship between Pete and the dragon felt quite a bit like from the animated film. The story surrounding them, no, probably is different. Like I said, it's been a while since I watched the animated. I meant to watch it before I saw this, but didn't get a chance to. Because in all honesty, I it was not that popular with me.
No, I wasn't. I saw it as a kid, and it was one of those films I don't think I've revisited more than like one other time since I saw it as a kid.
So I retract my statement of beat for beat, but as far as relationship, the relationship between Pete and Elliot, that felt a lot like from the movie. But they just wrote this really great story around it. It's interesting how an indie filmmaker has done a better family story than Steven Spielberg.
Oh my God, you went there, and I actually completely agree. I completely agree. I was one of those rare people who actually didn't say anything about that movie, just because, I felt like everyone was glowing about it, and I kind of walked into it, and I walked out of it, and I was like, okay. Like, I was just underwhelmed by it.
I dug BFG, don't get me wrong, but if I had my choice between watching that and this, I'd watch this. Just because it felt, and it's a different type of story too, but just it felt like a better told story. So
why do you think? So I'm just going to pick your brain a little bit, since we can do this here, since we rarely get together. Why do you think movies like BFG, and apparently this one, where it doesn't seem to be doing as well at the box office, why do you think that is, as opposed to like something like The Jungle Book doing so gangbusters at the box office?
I'm not sure on that. I do know, at least it felt like they had a larger marketing behind Jungle Book than this one. Even though you see the banners in that, it felt like Jungle Book, they pushed a little bit heavier than this one. Maybe that's why it's not doing so well. I'm not sure. Or it could just be the fact of, in all honesty, and that not any type of get off my lawn moment, just the simple fact, streaming and your specialty channels now make it tougher, I think, to sell family films in general, because you have so many that the parents don't have to pack their kids up to the theater to go see, when they can just click on the streaming right there. And I think it's harder to get, and you can say that with just about any of the films, but action films, genre films, they're going to have their fanboys in that. But for family films, I think the fact that there's more of that out there on your fingertips is easier for families to throw on the streaming on the big screen with their smart TV than it is to pack up your kids and go to see the movie on the screen.
I think that's a great point. But I do feel like people who don't see this are really kind of missing out on a really great theater experience, because the look of this film in terms of direction style, and I don't know if you know this, Mark, but most of this movie was actually shot in natural lighting. So it's they're missing out on that. You're missing out on some of those epic swooping shots with the dragon, and just the visual style and the wood shots, and there's a lot to it where I feel like when I watch it again on the Blu-ray, it's not going to have that same kind of theater experience. And I know people love being at home and being in the pajamas, but there's just certain movies that I feel like really, like, I think indie films work best, for most people work best at home. But movies like this, I still feel like I think people are missing out by not seeing them. Even the BFG, which I thought was but those visual elements to it were just so great that I couldn't envision watching that on a small screen at home. And I know people have 60s and 70 inches, but it's still not, 200 inches like it is in the movie theater, or 300 inches, and the sound, like, come on.
Well, it's the energy too of the audience. Now, I didn't have a huge audience when I saw Pete's Dragon, but the audience that I did see, you heard sniffles in the audience at times. So you didn't feel so bad when it hits you in the feels. You're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. That's
Right.
good. And I know my buddy Andrew mentioned at his showing that he went to, the audience actually clapped at the end, which he hadn't seen in a while. He goes, people were into it and they were clapping, and that's a great experience. And kids, yeah, I know it's difficult. Trust me, I know. I have two of my own, especially when they're younger, to pack them up to the theater. But at the same time, it's an experience. Some films need to be experienced, and this one should be experienced on the big screen. And your kids will remember it. I mean, they may not remember watching the latest Land Before Time on, streaming on the 50-inch, but they'll remember the time mom and dad took you to see Pete's Dragon. You got popcorn and you got a little soda and you got to sit in the theater, and there was, it just surrounds you. Theater experience is still something that families should experience together, because it does sound cheesy, but it does lasting memories. And Pete's Dragon is one where you can feel safe taking kids to see it. There's not an innuendo jokes. There's not, oh, look, we're going to do this joke just specifically that the adults are going to get at all. It's a film that I think has a solid story, great visuals. It doesn't dumb things down, but yet it doesn't, it doesn't just play going, oh, we're making a family movie. They're making a story that just happens to be geared towards families, which there's a difference, I think. And I love Pete's Dragon. Can't recommend it enough for people to go see it this weekend.
Yeah, me too. I hope that the box office numbers pick up today and tomorrow, and then it picks up. And if it doesn't come out, which I know they're not predicting it coming out at number 1, but hopefully it'll come out around 2 or 3, and then we'll have legs over the next couple of weeks. I mean, outside of Kubo next week, I think this is probably the end of family films for a while, right? Outside of Kubo. So after like the disappointing Ice Age movie that should never have been made, go ahead and, see this. And I mean, I'm going to probably wind up going out and actually giving this movie money myself, either tomorrow or sometime during the week, just because, I don't feel bad paying for something if something's good, and I feel like everyone in the film is very passionate and want to tell this. So I'll give a movie like this money, even though I saw it, as a critic.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie I could see myself going back to. I may, depending on my schedule, go back and see it on the screen again, because it's a solid film. It really is. It's a solid story that's told. It doesn't try to be anything more than what it is, and what it is pretty amazing in my book. So there you have it, folks. Sausage Party and Pete's Dragon. 2 films that couldn't be more opposite if you tried. You got our views on it. I hope you've enjoyed this time with the Moviemen, if you will. And Scott, real quick, why don't you tell all our fine 0 viewers right now, but the fine folks out there, where they can catch your stuff and a little bit more about what you do.
Okay, so Mark is part of the website, and he's also part of the YouTube channel where We Live Entertainment. And Mark has his wonderful Horror Thursdays where he reviews pretty much anything he wants, because I give him free-for-all range. He can do whatever he wants, whether it's hookers and zombies versus, Conjuring 2. He can do whatever he wants. But we love him, and he's dedicated, and he does such great content. So the website is We Live Entertainment. We very much are very focused right now on doing a lot of reviews and interviews. I've been going to press days multiple times a week. We have Pete's Dragon. Speaking of that, there's about 5 articles from this week. You can check them out, all dealing with all the different actors a part of the film, so you can visit that. The channel also has 3 really strong people, one including Mark. We also have Chase Lee, who does his comedy show on Wednesdays, and then we also have Nick, who does the spoiler. I think he renamed them the Cinema Weekend Reviews because he wants to do spoilers and non-spoilers now. So check all that stuff out. I really appreciate this. Mark's a great guy. If you haven't subscribed to this man yet, why haven't you? You should, because look at how much fucking effort he puts into his channel. Come on. This man's been working with me for 2 years, and I think he missed like 1 episode, and that's it. So subscribe to this guy. You think these people are hardworking out here in LA? This man sitting in his house in Wisconsin is busting his balls. So you show him the respect he deserves. Subscribe to his channel, like him on Facebook, and all that good stuff.
That check will be in the mail there, Scott. Thank you very much. You are too kind.
The check's in the mail. Make it out to Disney Marvel Productions.
Yes. So I hope you enjoyed us talking tonight about Sausage Party and about Pete's Dragon. Yes, please subscribe. Check out WeLiveEntertainment.com. Some great written reviews there by Scott, Menzel, and the staff. And occasionally, once in a while, I'll even do a written word if I'm so inclined. So thank you very much, folks. And until next time, remember, keep that ticket stub.